guys, welcome to the Infused Queen Tea Podcast. I'm your girl, Latonya Vibes, host, and it's time to roll with Latonya Vibes. All right, let me get into it. So, like I said, welcome to the Empire, and this is where we use the platform to talk about personal development, entrepreneurship, and all things cannabis, because your girl's trying to be the queen of the cannabis industry. So we're going to get into it. We're going to get into the topics. We're going to get into the very authentic and genuine experiences of actually building your brand in the cannabis industry, in the cannabis space, and the regulations, fighting those, understanding your rights, all the beautiful things we're going to dive into. But today I had to get into a topic that I felt was very fucking influential and important to discuss. And it's more cannabis based. So for my cannabis people, my cannabis interested folks, this is going to be the episode for you. Okay. So let's get into it. All right. So recently, like today, this afternoon, I had made a reel about basically it was like say something that everyone would hate you for saying. And I had brought up the discussion that using cannabis or using any type of plant medicine, because I don't want to just restrict that to cannabis, that could be your magic mushrooms. You know, we got the other ones that the people who go out there in the huts and do the little ashwagandha and all the other shit. So like there's different, I'm still learning and I'm still educating myself on all the plant medicines, okay? And the psychedelics and the non-psychedelics. So with that, I noticed that if you don't have an intention behind what you're using or what you're doing, it becomes habit forming. And once it becomes a habit, it becomes an addiction. And a lot of stoners don't like to address or even acknowledge the fact that they might struggle with addiction to, it's not really addiction to cannabis, it's the habit forming, what is it? So, I'm sorry. It's the habits that they have formed around using cannabis that are not very positive or high vibrational, to be honest. So for instance, smoking to escape is low vibrational. Smoking because things are just hard to handle or you don't know how to communicate is not a good reason. Smoking just to smoke, smoking because everyone's around. And it's not even just smoking, because you can consume plant medicine in more than one way. You can do topicals. We talking topical. You ain't gonna get no psychedelic effects. Little queen tea tip. You don't get psychedelic effects from topical cannabis infused products. That is not going to happen. Even if it's a THC, it's not going to give you the psychedelic effect because it does not reach the bloodstream through the skin. So boom, little sidebar. But the main thing I was saying is any type of use, any type of way you're consuming can become addicting or can become an addictive behavior if you're not clear and set in on the intentions you're using your plant medicine for. So to kind of give you guys a little background, give you a little reason why I like even brought this up was because a lot of you guys know I'm Canna mom of three little queenies, well, two queenies and a kingy. And when I moved to Florida, I had received my medical card, which was lit, okay? Like you couldn't stop Latonya. But with all that access and not enough knowledge, of course, your girl abused her prescription. And I'm going to, I guess, get into how I abused my prescription a little bit. But so basically, I became a medical patient. I got my prescription. Everything was lit. The prices was lit. The access was lit. You don't got to wait on nobody. I know that I can go down the street like it's Walmart at any between 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and I'm going to be straight. And so, and then also, like I said, the pricing was good. Especially when you're a mom, you look for any ways to save. And if I could save on something that is my medication, something that is kind of also like my leisure and hobby, I'm definitely going to learn where to cut the corners at, you know? So with all that access, with all the access, and then also with the stresses of being a parent, I'm not even gonna get into that, y'all. We already know what that is. But also I am a business owner. But at the time I was a business owner, I was working full time, I was going to school full time, and it just seemed like my plate was completely full. And so where my blunts went from like, I had a low tolerance when I started. So maybe I could smoke like 3 blunts a day, and that's crazy. That's pushing it because maybe I can smoke, halves of it. So I got technically like 4 sessions. No, I got 6 sessions. No, I got 8 sessions if I split 4 blunts up in a day. Sorry about the math. Okay. That's why I'm in liberal math now. But I noticed that my smoking went from me enjoying and having a great lucrative session off of a half, was I would smoke entire face, a whole blunt, and then I'm already looking for my next one, or I already rolled it up because Latanya is very efficient with her time. So I always like to think ahead. Let me go ahead and roll up because I might not get time later. So let me do it now. Save it, be ready. Yeah, that's the vibe I was setting with that. But when you do stuff like that, you're not really aware. And originally, when I got my medical card, it was to support me for my mental health, more for anxiety. Originally, I was taking prescription hydroxine, and I was going to therapy for my anxiety and depression. But it just seemed like those were not aiding it. And I'm going to be honest, when I was on my prescription medication, it made me just feel like a zombie. It made me feel numb. I really feel like I was not even addressing none of the issues. I was just like a zombie walking through the day. And then by the time the medication ran out, I could tell because my blood pressure is back up, I'm feeling anxious, and it's time to take another dose. But I noticed that every time I would interact with my coworkers, I was interacting with my family, my kids, everybody was always asking me what's wrong with me. And I did not like that shit. I'm pretty sure a lot of people who have mental health issues, we don't, for one, I hate having to tell people I'm having an issue. For two, when I do tell people, it's kind of like they treat you like something's wrong with you, like you're a little cage bear and they're just walking around figuring out how they should get in there and help you or whatever. But I just noticed I just don't like that vibe that I was getting, and when everybody kept saying, what's wrong? And I'm like, y'all niggas, I'm taking medication right now so I can be a functioning human, so I can show up for you guys how y'all are wanting me to show up, and y'all are still complaining. So there's where spiritual growth goes in. Because you should not be people pleasing, but that is a whole other topic for a whole nother day. But what I had noticed was the fact that, so like I was saying originally, I switched from using the prescription hydroxine over to get my medical cannabis to combat the anxiety, which it was helping, but I did not understand what the fuck a percentage was. I didn't understand what dosing was. I didn't understand what terpenes was. I didn't understand that you could be allergic to terpenes. That scared me. But I didn't understand that these are all factors that I never even considered one time. And so I'm consuming cannabis with this, like with no knowledge is what I'm basically trying to say. As I was consuming with no knowledge, no education about the plant. And even though I'm going to college, like I went to learn sativa to learn more about cannabis cultivation, the business side of it, I was realizing I was not even applying the knowledge that I was learning, which is dumb as fuck because I paid for it to go. But I started realizing that there was a lot of essential tools that I was not tapping into that I had. And if I was going to be using my platform to educate everybody on cannabis, I probably should be educating myself. Accountability queen. But no, so fast forward, I'm stressed the fuck out. Okay, I have my medical card. Your girl got nice little access to money. It's COVID time now. So y'all know y'all asses not on the road. Gas prices was low. I definitely can afford $25 ground at True Leaf. Like a lot of my folks who started out as medical patients here in Florida. So you go to that True Leaf and you're getting that ground, you get 7 Gs, do your thing. They might got different deals. So I ain't going, don't quote me on the pricing, but this is only for medical patients only, nothing for sale. I just noticed in that space, though, I was just having such an easy ass access to get it to where I was like smoking up my jars, and I'm not realizing that until I'm looking at my drawer that's full of empty ass True Leaf containers. That like, ma'am, how much are you even consuming? You're not even watching what you're consuming, and now I realize that you're just basically replacing your blunts and your gels and your not your topicals, but I would make infused drinks. I love me an infused drink. I'm an infused queen. Tea, okay? So I loved an infused drink. I'm drinking infused tea in the morning with my little honey, my Celestial Goods honey. Shout out to the queen. I'm gonna tag her in the episode. But I'm doing my honey. I'm doing all these things. And those are beautiful. And I was creating new methods because also as a mother, I cannot just blaze up how I want to. I got kids around me 24/7. I'm single mom. So I had to find other ways to consume that were less detecting to other people. So that's what space I had to do is I had to start reevaluating what was going on. And it took a serious tea break. I was getting into how I got into my tea break, but it took a serious tea break and a serious ass real friend to come in and make me reevaluate my actions and take accountability. First, the tea break happened was the fact that I needed to I needed to make a doctor's appointment. So here in Florida, you have to go to your medical provider twice a year to renew your prescription, and then you pay once a year registration to the state. So I had already paid my registration for the year, but it was the end of the year. It's like close to September. It's time for me by my birthday, it's time for me to renew. And for whatever reason, that was a broke moment. So a broke moment in business. I had to kind of like choose what was important to me. And the addict in me was like, girl, you can go ahead and pay that $100 to $200 to go to the medical provider, get your prescription renewed, and be at True Leave tomorrow. Or B, you could take this as a sign from God in the universe telling you that you need to sit your ass down, save your money, and use this time to reflect. Use it as a tea break because I noticed also when I was over consuming that I needed to be forced into a tea break, meaning I was one of those people that a rap is not going to stop me. A lighter ain't going to stop me. It's going to be that I don't have no access or I have no bread. And so that also kind of bothered me a little bit. But when you're in that space, you're not worried about that, to be honest. So like I said, it took me, for one, my prescription ran out. So your girl had to sit for about a month. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to pay. Like I had mentally made a note that budget-wise, your girl wasn't going to be able to get that car for about a month. So I knew for about a month, I was going to have to sit with myself and really dive into what was going on mentally. And I was not going to have the little aids that I was depending on, meaning I was not going to have therapy. I was not going to have my medical cannabis. I've been stopped taking the prescription, so I didn't have access to that either. So this is where personal development and healing comes into play. And it's not always comfortable. It is not always cute. And it's definitely not fun. And it can be very, very crucial on the mental health phase. I'm not even going to act like it's not. There's a lot of times where you feel like you're going at it alone. And that's just that's a part of a mental phase you're going through. So just kind of putting you guys in the same space that I was in. But fast forward, after I know I was getting forced into this tea break, I already was having a shit week 1 week, and I already had stopped smoking. And I think actually I had smoked my last blunt that morning. She didn't even know about that before I had a conversation with one of my really good friends. So flash into that time, I'm over here shaking because your girl now, at this point, I'm smoking at least 10 to 12 plus blunts a day. And anybody that's been around me knows that I am not exaggerating for a podcast. Like that was really how I'm going. Like I would get either the 4 packs of 4Ks, I would get 4 packs of 4Ks, or I would get 4 packs of zigzag wraps. And I'm letting y'all know by the end of the day, I needed another pack. So almost 16 blunts. Like being honest, I might have 1 pack leaning into the next day, but your girl was packing it out. I'm not gonna lie, not gonna cap. After that day I smoked the blunt, I had already scheduled a meeting with her because the queen I got to talk to is a life coach and a wellness coach, a mental health wellness coach. And she is someone I normally do go to when I'm going through some transitions or shifts, or if I need like a new perspective. This queen, if she can guide me, I'm a hard-headed Leo. If she can guide me, she can guide y'all. Okay. That's all I got to say. So I had this conversation with her, and she was just kind of like, we check in on each other, and she was just letting me know like she had stopped smoking. And my pot has, so as soon as she said that, I said, well, good for you, queen. Because I'm a hella supportive. Like, I'm not gonna be the type that I'm not gonna go, well, I'm a smoker in front of you. I'm very supportive of whatever your mission is, but I also will be respectful. I'm gonna smoke the blunt over there. I'm not gonna stop though. It's like it's literally that. It's literally that. So um me and her have a conversation, and we're talking about some personal things. We're talking about some spiritual things. And she finally just cut to it, like, because when you got real friends around you, they gonna call you out. And she was just like, so Queen, how you doing with the weed? How do you feel like what space do you feel like you're in with that? And she wasn't someone to tell me where I was. She wanted me to reevaluate at that time and tell her where I was. And we kind of hinted to the fact that I might have an addiction, but she wasn't going to call me out. She wanted me to call myself out. But it was just some of the things that she was saying. Like, for instance, the one part was I was just smoking mindlessly. Like, sometimes it would be like I would be rolling up and it would just be out of habit, or I'm looking to light up and it's just out of habit, or um, as soon as I would get triggered by any little thing, like life is stressful, we get that shit. And there's like little mini stressors throughout the day. I would let every single one of those little stressors be the reason why I was going to go consume. For one, I realized that most of my time was consumed by that. If it was not in the act of getting it, in the act of partaking, or in the act of thinking about partaking, most of my time was consumed by that. And for you to be a business owner, let's be honest, you need to be very disciplined. You need to be on your P's and Q's, and you need to be able to be very like time management savvy with the shits. And so if you high as hell, I mean, I'm a productive stoner. I do claim that, but I realized that I like to do everything with an intention. And when I started smoking cannabis, it wasn't how everybody kind of was introduced to it. I was introduced to it in a space of I was really struggling mental health wise, like, and I was introduced to it by a friend, and they created a safe space for me. And that was the first time I ever consumed, made me feel like myself. Like, I was goofy, I was happy, I was able to be carefree. And sometimes we get attached to that feeling. Sometimes we get attached to an emotion. And that's normally how an addiction occurs, is when you attach a feeling, an emotion, or just a vibe to a specific activity or a habit. And you always chase to do that, even whenever it's very self-sabotaging, just because you're willing to get even just an ounce of that feeling or a piece of that feeling. So when she called me out, I had finally got off the phone with her and consulted my mom, because you got to consult too. That's me. I got to consult the queens. And I was like, Mom, like, I just had a real conversation. And as I'm talking to my mom, as I told you guys, I had no more weed left. I'm still trying to buy wrap. So I'm in the thing talking to my mom about like, hey mom, I might be addicted to cannabis. As I'm in the corner store buying wraps, y'all. Addiction. So at that moment, I had to walk out the store. I had to leave the wraps there because I definitely didn't have no weed at home, and I was not getting my card because the girl was trying to save money for other purpose. Like, that's something that I could say as I started realizing that it was affecting. Like, I would be like, well, this is my treat. So because I don't get my nails done and because I spend most of my money like providing for my children, I would be like, well, this is my treat. No, ma'am, you can treat yourself with a yoga class. You can treat yourself with a fucking therapy session. You don't need to treat yourself with weed all the time. It's not a treat. Or if it is going to be a treat, you need to associate it to more like a positive, more of a positive reward, instead of like, oh, you wasn't stressed today, go smoke. Like, it needs to be like, you procrastinated this task. And so now you're not going to smoke until you complete this task. And once you get it done, now you can treat yourself. And that's how I've been doing it, which I feel like honestly has shaped my perspective into becoming a productive stoner, which I believe those are real. And you can choose to be like, I feel like you can choose to be whatever type of person you want to be. And you can choose to be whatever type of stoner you want to be. You want to be lazy, you can do that. It's easy, very, very easy. If you want to be productive and you want it to not hinder your life, you can choose that as well too. So fast forward, get my card back. And I realized now that I wanted to be more intentional about it. So I started looking and researching and started paying attention to the effects that I was getting when I was actually consuming cannabis. And I also paid attention to the methods I was using. So not trying to use the same method over and over again, like I had mentioned earlier. So for instance, I love a wake and bake, okay? But I learned that I like to wake up, little tip for the mommies, I like to wake up earlier than my entire household. I like to be the one that set the vibe for the house. I notice that every time I've allowed my kids to wake up before me, they set the vibe and it ain't a good vibe. So I've learned to always be awake and aware and get everything set for the kids, or set the vibe for the kids for the day. Also, the world is asleep, so you can talk to God, talk to the universe. It's like at the most peace and zen I feel like I can be is in the middle. It's like 5 a.m., 5:30, right before 6. When the kids ain't up, they ain't gonna get up now. I ain't gotta go to work yet. You know, let me stop. Think about tomorrow. Let me stop. So I just would notice that in the morning for me now, being intentional, I've used cannabis a part of my spiritual practices, meaning that when I wake up in the morning and I'm setting my intentions and I'm meditating and I'm trying to set that peaceful tone and vibe for the day, that is when a moment where I will consume cannabis. But it's not a moment where I'm going to go face the whole blunt and meditate. It's going to be a moment where I meditate with a blunt and I do breath work. Like, I don't know, maybe this is weird, but Jim drop if it ain't. What I like to do to set a spiritual tone and also create an intention. And it also, I'm going to be honest, this one practice has helped me set more intentions when I do use cannabis, and also what I use when I'm using, like, consuming. So for instance, in the morning, I want to set a nice vibe, but I don't need to be going to sleep. So I'm not going to mess with anything with linalool in it, because that's lavender. Lavender is a calming agent, you know, and depending on the other terpenes that is within the cannabis, like within the terpene profile or whatever, there might be some other calming effects. So now the high or the effects I'm going to get are calming, but they might be also drowsy, or there might be more based for sleep aid versus starting a day. And so when I mean being intentional is not even just about the act of smoking. It's about knowing what you're putting in your body. It's about knowing what works for you. For me, I found out that I'm allergic to limonene. It gives me that real itchy, like I'm doing right now. It gives me that itchy vibe where it makes me feel like I'm having a panic attack. And it wasn't until recently when I started paying attention to the terpenes that was in my cannabis, because now I've been shopping completely at the dispensary. Like, I haven't been with my street vendors. So since I haven't been with my street vendors, I can get the lab test where it's going to tell me exactly what's in the cannabis that I purchased. But the problem with that is a lot of people don't know if they're even allergic to different terpenes. And terpenes is something that you couldn't find in all plants. It's not just cannabis. So it's like lemons, limonene, mycelium is in your mangoes, pinene is in your that's why it has like that piney. That's what you could find in pine trees. Like, those are terpenes that you could find in other plants that are not cannabis. And so knowing how your body reacts to those things, like your body, are you allergic to lemons? Are you allergic to this? Are you allergic to that? Like, knowing your body, being educated in your body, being educated and knowing that, like, if I know I had like smoked this and I was intentional about my session, I could pay attention to see if I'm having a negative effect, and I can report back, and then I can make a track of, okay, I noticed that every time I have caryophyllene, it's a very positive experience, but every time there's a little bit of limonene, I've noticed that it's given me a little bit more anxiety. I'm an anxiety patient. So why would I want to take anything that's causing me more anxiety? That's why I'm saying it's very, very important to know and understand where you are mental health, like where you are mental health wise, because if I'm already struggling and having an imbalance with anxiety, like mentally wise, like my brain health, that's how it operates. But then I'm also introducing things into my body that can be more inducing, or my body has a side effect to it. And I'm not even paying attention to it, but because I'm liking the psychedelic effects of it, some of them, because that means the entire experience is sometimes not enjoyable. You might have like a fun beginning and the middle starts fucking with you, or the end, or how you crash, or even how you feel after, all those things do play a part. But let me get back into it because I was drifting a little bit. I just noticed that when I started paying attention to the terpenes I was putting in and paying attention to like gummies is not something that I'm going to take at work. Especially THC based gummies. I'm not talking about the CBD, CBNs. I know for sure that if I take me a Delta 9 gummy, I take me a Delta 8 gummy, take me a little THC gummy, your girl's going down. And it's going to be over time, or I'm not responded. But for some people, they can't smoke the blunt, or a joint would do the same thing to them where they're going to be down. A blunt doesn't do that to me. It kind of hypes me up. So it's just like understanding what methods work for you as well. Or like I was saying earlier, I did the infused honey in my tea. Top tier self-care activity you can do for yourself. First of all, if you guys haven't heard, you guys definitely need to check out Celestial Goods. She has an infused honey line, beautiful ass products, beautiful ass packaging. And she is someone that is very, very intentional about the ingredients that she uses. So tap in, because that's definitely where I used to that's where I get my honey. I'm about to get some more when I get banged honey. But no, being intentional would be like how I would use her tea in the morning. I wouldn't go hard in 2 scoops. I'm gonna take me a nice 1 scoop. That's probably about 10 milligrams. Get it going in the morning, set the tone. You know what I'm saying? And now I can get up and go, and it's not something that's affecting me because I'm not smelling like smoke. So I can go into work, I can interact with society. Also for my kids, it's something that I could keep in my cup, and I could wait till I drop them off, and then, honey, I'll see y'all later. I'm about to get right and go to the park and work out. So, just like things like that you never think of, but if you start to become more intentional, you will see a positive effect in your life. Like for me, when I started educating myself about cannabis, not only has it opened my mind, but it's opened me to the space of thriving in business, because that is my goal, is to become someone like high in cannabis, because I want to be able to educate everyone and give everybody the space without there being any gatekeeping. Like that's honestly my goal, is just basically creating a more equal opportunity platform for women, men, all races, all spiritual backgrounds, religious backgrounds, sexual orientation, class, whatever y'all want to say, all that. I just want it to be an inclusive place, because I feel like all of us have something to give to cannabis. So with that, you have to be educated. You have to start understanding cannabis. And I feel like it also helped me thrive in business, because now I understand what it's going to take for me to create self-care routines for my queens and kings. You know what I'm saying? Now I understand how to educate you guys on what might be more beneficial for you. So that's to sum it up. We're going to get into your girl. I love a queen tea too. So that might be her. We go get into it. The first queen tea tip of Cannabis Education Edition is being honest with yourself. We don't like doing that, but we're going to have to do it. Being honest with yourself about the age you might need with mental health concerns, okay? Reaching out for help allows you to be able to craft an effective plan that benefits you. if you're not willing to help, ask for help and tell somebody exactly what you need, or be able to start at least navigating a space of like, this is maybe where I feel, like here's a web of where I feel, maybe we can put this together, see where I land and what I need to work and focus on. It all starts with just being honest with yourself. A lot of times we like to think that mental health is like something to be ashamed of, but it's something that most of the time is not actually induced by you. Like there's trauma, there are trauma responses, or maybe they're conditioned behaviors or conditioned thoughts and conditioned emotions. And so being able to reach out and being able to speak up, for me, it has placed me in a better spot, because now I feel like I'm not crazy. I feel like there's answers to what's going on. The second Queen Tea tip I have is have a clear understanding. Having a clear understanding of the intention behind your consumption with plant medicine is essential, because it is plant medicine. Just like any other medication, it can be abused. And I hate the fact that everyone likes to act like it's not. Cannabis itself, like the cannabinoids within cannabis, the THC, CBD, CBN, CBG, all of them, okay? All of them, THCV, all of those cannabinoids, none of them actually have the symptoms or side effects of being addictive. So like how nicotine is found to be addicting, you're not going to find those same side effects or the same compounds within cannabis. But the problem is that psychedelic effect that you receive and the feelings, the euphoria that you feel is what people are addicted to. So it's not necessarily the plant, it's the feeling and the emotion that they're attached to. Screams addiction. Okay, let me stop. Let me stop. So no, that's why I say being intentional about your consumption is very, very essential. If you are using it just because you like to get high, that says that that's not the right intention, because you are attached to the emotion that you're receiving. And if you are only using cannabis to get there, you're lacking, and you're lacking. It's not that you're lacking, you're limiting yourself. And the reason why I say you're limiting yourself is because there's nothing in this world, I'm gonna be honest, there's nothing physical or in the tangible that should give you that much peace, because it has the option to be taken away, corrupted, and disrupted. I learned to start looking for those things and things that I can give myself for free, the intangible, meaning peace, boundaries, love for myself. Those things are the things that I feel like go overconsume the self-love, overconsume the self-awareness, overconsume the accountability, overconsume that. And the feelings that you get with that don't necessarily chase a feeling that anybody can alter, because the same way people spike drinks and everything else, they spike cannabis, and you don't want them to be spiking it with something that is actually really addicting. Like, no, that's a really concern that I have for myself. So that's why I said I'm very intentional about my smoking. If I'm out and about and somebody randomly just offer me, that's not smoking with an intention. I don't even know where this came from. I don't know what this is. What's the terpene? Can you tell me? Oh, you ain't know. What's terpene? You ain't know what the terpene is. All right, let me get off that. But I'm just saying, be intentional about what you smoke, who you smoke with, when you smoke, all that. The last Queen Tea tip I have for you, the queens and kings tonight, for the collective, because that's what y'all are to me, is the collective, is educate yourself on strains and methods and dosages to unlock essential healing properties that were crafted by medical cannabis professionals. So I have got to like network with different people in the cannabis industry, and I'm noticing that there's a lack of a lot of medical professionals that are educated in cannabis to the extent of being able to treat and understand the side effects and things that come with a cannabis user. Like, for instance, I think I had a podcast. Yeah, I did a podcast episode with Miss Bashima James, and she is a actual nurse, a registered nurse, but she also is a cannabis nurse. And she had brought up the fact that when they're treating patients inside the ER, a lot of times they're not aware of the patient being a medical patient, a medical cannabis patient user, and they don't even acknowledge that when they're giving care to the patients. And me working in the ER, non-clinical. I've also seen that because a lot of times when they would ask certain questions or certain things that I had to mark out for registration, it would never sit there. It would be like, do you smoke cigarettes? Do you do this? Do you do this? But it's never asking about cannabis use, which should be included because it does play a part in your body makeup, your chemical makeup whenever you're partaking in it. So yeah, talk to a medical professional. The reason why I say talk to a cannabis medical professional is just because they are going to be more educated in your body with cannabis. They're going to be educated within your endocannabinoid system. They're going to have a little bit more education and guidance to give you versus some medical professionals that also practice based off of their, what is it called? Kind of based off of their opinions, because maybe they don't really vibe with the cannabis use. So they don't even want to acknowledge it. They don't want to address it. They don't want to learn about it. Like, that is a real thing. We're not even going to act like it ain't. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. So Infused Queen Tea Podcast, a cannabis education edition. Ow, let me stop. But yeah, that's kind of just what to sum up what tonight's vibe is. I appreciate you guys for tapping in, listening, joining, and I hope you guys have a high vibrational day.